Hello and what is up YouTube? It's G3Iron, your balding beardless buddy here to chat about the live updates and some changes that we just got last night or early today, wherever you are in the world, to the ongoing 321 Crucible League. So let's take a look. There's a lot of different changes here. Some of them are changes indeed that are coming, no doubt, in response to player feedback, which is always great. It's one of the things that I've praised Grinding Gear Games for over the last, roughly 8 years or so while playing and chatting about Path of Exile is just how responsive Grinding Gear Games is to feedback from the community. So here we go. Later today, we will be releasing patch 321.0c, which includes the visual update to Crucible's UI mentioned in day 4, as well as several bug fixes and improvements. Check out the patch notes below. Please note these are still subject to change prior to the patch's deployment. The 321.0c update on consoles will be deployed as soon as possible after its release on PC. By the way, happy release day and release week for all of our friends over on console. All right, so here's the patch notes. This patch disables lower tier Crucible passives that have downsides from rolling. That should be a massive applause. Everybody should be excited about that, right? Everybody, not everybody, a whole bunch of folks were upset that essentially earlier on in lower tier stuff that you'd interact with Crucible while you're leveling through the 10x story campaign could roll downsides, essentially. And so that's great news. Also contains updates to the Crucible Forge user interface, as well as a number of other improvements and bug fixes. So here we go. Here's the Crucible changes. They've added an indicator to the Crucible Forge user interface, which displays the relative difficulty for the amount of channeling you have done and how close you are to fully channeling the encounter. This is an excellent update. I am still in favor of channeling the encounter. I am not in favor of just a simple click easy, medium or super hard, but clarifying where you're at on that channeling process for how difficult the encounter is going to be. I think overall that's good news. All right, disabled most of the lower tier Crucible passives that have downsides on the initial skill from rolling. Initial skills with downsides are far less common and can generally only roll in the end game. When an initial skill does come with a downside, the upside should outweigh the downside. Now, that's going to be a meme. I'm sure that's going to be a meme. Folks are going to laugh about that. I'm sure folks are going to, share examples of, very rare examples, but when this happens, it's still going to feel bad. But hopefully, ultimately, what's going to happen is when you drop a Crucible weapon and you actually unlock the passive tree, ultimately now you should see less downsides earlier on. That's the goal, at least. Okay, the Crucible passive that granted weapon elemental damage and cannot inflict elemental ailments can no longer roll. That's fantastic because, for any of us that were playing Ignite builds or that we were using, I don't know, something like Skitterbots for shock effect and chill effect. I don't know if you're running a cold dot build, if you're running an Ignite build. Anyway, if you're any sort of elemental build, that's just awkward. So that's great that that's gone. Unique items obtained by selling an item with a Crucible passive tree now come with their own Crucible passive tree with the first skill allocated. That's good news. That's very, very good news because it was a little bit too punishing to play unique items and to mess around with Crucible before. So hopefully this is something of a fix for that. I don't know if it's going to be enough of a fix for it. Ideally, Crucible should just be an awesome league mechanic for playing with uniques because uniques, you already have like a specified build subset of stats and categories that you're already interacting with. So Crucible should just be like a strict boost to your unique item usage that you are using, whether it's a shield, a two-hander, or a one-hander, or the helm, the unique helm from the league. So the fact that unique items have felt as poorly as they have early on, I think was unintended in the design. I think unique items were supposed to feel better than what they have felt like so far through the first couple days of the league. Updated the explode visuals for the Crucible passive tree skill that causes totems to explode on death to be more appropriate. By the way, there is a really cool exploding totems build that I will link. I'll link the video and the discussion guide. It's over on the Path of Exile builds subreddit that was being discussed yesterday. That's pretty cool. Okay, general improvements. The caster passive skill mastery, which provides a chance to open nearby chests when you cast a spell, no longer opens curio displays in Heist. So this is a really, really cool mastery. A lot of players have been requesting for a long time. I forget when it was, 2 or 3 years ago, that we did the, an overview introduction of Chinese Path of Exile, which is a different client than global Path of Exile, which is what all of the rest of us play on. And one of the things that was most controversial, at least in our video on the topic, was that in China, you can purchase like a pickup pet that helps you grab your currency and your pickups. I am not in favor of that on the global realm. I think that that's lame. I think that you guys can all meme me down below in the comments. I will use the word. I think there needs to be a certain weight to when you pick something up. I like that. I like having to click on and pick something up. Ideally, there are a lot of clicks in Path of Exile, especially during the early league, because we're all trying to get things like as silly as low tier currency like Portal Scrolls and Wisdom Scrolls. But eventually you're going to do less clicking because you're going to improve your loot filter and you're going to be only picking up the stuff that's truly worth it for you and for your build. Anyway, I bring all of that up to say this caster passive mastery that automatically pops open things, it was a problem in Heist because it was inadvertently popping open things you didn't want to pop open. And it feels like this is maybe potentially testing for POE 2 to see just how many players use this mastery, to see how many players enjoy using this mastery and what sort of bugs are there for this mastery. We could be seeing some level of adoption of players have a small radius where they pop open chests. Popping open chests is not the same as having a loot pickup pet. I'm way more okay with this, popping open the chest, than you going over and clicking on the currency. Just personally, I'm way more in favor with that because you can already run a build like, let's say, Righteous Fire, or let's say any kind of movement skill that's already going to break open a lot of breakables that are in your AoE. Now, there are actual chests that you still need to click on, but this is big, and this is also very big for Ruthless, by the way. I know I'm saying the word Ruthless. Oh, no! But this is actually pretty big for Ruthless because in Ruthless, you want to click on everything because you're so scarce on resources and currency. Like, genuinely, things that are in a chest could make the difference for your character. So this is interesting to me. It's interesting. It's kind of just a small note, but it might indicate something about the direction of Path of Exile 2 and further quality of life improvements coming. Okay, the Heist Hideout Locker decoration is now unlocked when you first visit the Rogue Harbor in a league rather than upon completing the Rogue Harbor quest. The flasks you use apply to link targets modifier on the Censure of Benevolence. Unique belt has been re-enabled. It now only applies to non-unique utility flasks you use. We've also enabled this belt to drop again, so hopefully nobody's going to die to to this now. Although somebody might still figure out somebody's going to figure out some sort of way to PK somebody in hardcore with that. Updated and armor passive skill mastery description to clarify. It provides maximum elemental resistances if equipped helmet, body armor, gloves, and boots all have armor. Previously stated maximum resistances, right? So it's previously it was confusing because people thought it included chaos resistances, but it's only your elemental resistances. Updated the description of the Spreading Strength challenge to clarify it is completed upon fully allocating Crucible passive skill trees on items with specific maximum depths. Improved the Crucible Forge and Crucible passive tree user interfaces for controller input mode. Okay, then there's a whole bunch of bug fixes down below. I'm not going to get into all of the bug fixes, but there they are. The one that I am going to mention is going to be the Juggernaut mode. Node, which was changing the way how armor was actually being calculated. That's a pretty big change, especially since the majority of the league, at least on the ladder, is or not the majority of the league. The single biggest ascendancy on the ladder is Juggernaut. So they fixed a bug where increased armor against projectile modifiers did not interact correctly with sources of base armor or other modifiers, including the Juggernaut's Unbreakable Ascendancy passive skill. And then right here, fixed a bug where the armor from equipped body armor is doubled. Stat was not doubling evasion from your body armor when iron reflexes was allocated. And then fixed a bug where the armor from equipped body armor is doubled. Stat from the Juggernaut's Unbreakable Ascendancy passive skill. So those of you who are armor based, Juggernaut characters, you all should rejoice because now your build should have just gotten buffed whenever the patch goes live for you in your realm. Okay, thanks so much for joining us. I'm sure I've missed some comments or some very important things here down below, so feel free to point those out in the comments. But other than that, this looks like good changes that are coming to Crucible overall. I know some folks are still going to complain, hey, we're not turning the league into a loot pinata league. Why don't monsters drop loot? But I think this change for disabling the lower tier Crucible passives is going to make it feel better for you to actually be working on weapons. The longer we all spend in the league, in general, the higher all of our characters are going to be in terms of their level and their progression and the type of content that they're taking on, which means the better base types we've got and the more we actually want to be working on weapons for Crucible. So I think time played in the league will, in combination with these changes, make it so that way Crucible overall is a more enjoyable experience for more players, not just the hypothetical 1%ers out there who are using Crucible. Yeah, so there we go. All right, thanks so much for joining us today. I hope the ongoing 321 Crucible League is the league. A Mirror of Calandra drops for you. Thanks for watching that video. If you'd like more information on any of our discussion points today, you can see them down below in the video description. If you'd also like to join our Discord or support our Patreon, you can do so with the links down below. Thanks again, and big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters.